Caleb, you'll be glad to know the snow is finally melting here.
That's
Um,
good.
but you might get
That's
some
good.
snow for the first game. Just looking at the radar a little bit. Hey, these first two games of preseason, just what have you liked so far? What are some kind of clear areas that you're looking to improve in this last game?
Yeah, so obviously those are our third and fourth games actually. The preseason, we played a couple earlier in the preseason, then we did an inter squad as well. But we knew in the first two games of this tournament that we would play two different groups and try to push as close to 90 minutes for as many guys as possible. That was the priority. So going into this last game, the priority is to essentially the best that we can set our team. And there'll still be a few positions up for grabs the following week, just with kind of where guys are at physically, and even with some of the new players who have come, just the last several weeks. But for the most part, this is the most important game of the preseason because it's a week out. Generally speaking, obviously going into the last game and the last day of preseason, we're very pleased. The positives are, and this is a massive positive, we're healthy. To go through essentially 5 weeks of a preseason and have no injuries to key players is probably the biggest positive you can have in a preseason. So we're healthy. Another positive is we're extremely fit. I think we're as fit as anyone. Obviously it's still 5 weeks, so you're not at your peak fitness, but to have a Lucas Zelleran play a 90, Darlington Nagbe a 90, the entire back four a 90, and hopefully they now get their second 90. So for them to go into the first game of the year with 2 90s on their belts is a huge positive. And when you just look at the analytics of their loads, their loads are at a very high level in comparison to, say, the end of the year when they were in peak fitness. So that's a huge positive. Clearly, we have a more deep team this year than we had last year. That's a huge positive. And I would say our team chemistry this year and our hunger overall is much more of a strength this year. When you're in the meal room and the guys hang around for 30 to 45 minutes longer when their meals are done and are just there talking with no phones out, you have a very good group. And I think, the team seems to have a real hunger. And yeah, you don't like to see a skirmish in the game, but it's nice to see when guys have each other's backs. And ultimately, I always find that you can tell a lot about a team when you score goals and when you get in little fights, and you saw that these guys have each other's backs, which is huge. So that's a real positive, our chemistry along with the deep roster. And then defensively, we've given up 1 goal in the 4 games, and by and large have been very pleased with our defending. And, I always say if you can build from that, that's always a positive. When we won MLS Cup, we were a very good defensive team. And last year we felt like we gave up too many goals. We were a little loose, and at times we needed to buckle down and grind out 1-0 games. So those are all real positives of where we're at. For me, the areas of improvement, I still think the attack is coming. There's some areas of improvement there. Obviously, I wouldn't read too much into the last game because, again, there may be a lot of those guys that don't play the first game. Some of them might. But you have to really look at each game as a one-off, and on that day in that game, I felt like we could have been a little bit more vertical. I said that we could have, I felt, risked a little more, gotten more numbers forward. Some of that's personnel. Malou's not really an attacking back. We played with more out and out wingers. So I felt like we struggled at times to play between the lines. Obviously, when Tom was at the 10, hasn't played a ton with Giassi in that role. We had 2 very young central midfielders in the 6 and 8, who I thought did extremely well, actually, but still they're young. They man marked those three guys in the center, and I thought they gave us some problems there. We didn't create the advantages enough with our wingers and didn't rotate enough. But you have to remember, I think we had like 5 or 6 players that were 21 or younger playing in that game. Will Sands is another one. I thought he did really well. Milos never even played with any of the guys on the field. Most of those guys had never played together. That lineup has never been put together other than a couple of days of preseason. So, at the end of the day, you could say, yeah, the attack needs to be better. I thought the first game, second half was better than the first. By and large, I think those 2 games, yeah, we won a little bit more, but that would be the one area. But I think I've always said this, it's easier to destroy than to create. And it's much harder to tighten up the defending than to loosen up the attack. And that comes with time. And, I think just in general, once we put the group together, we gain that chemistry. We've had some players this week or last week in this camp, coming in, right? So there's all these new players in, and, we just need a little bit of time to kind of just set the group and gain that final bit of understanding. But in general, yeah, I want to see us accelerate a bit more, play forward at times. There was a little bit of, I think Tuesday, a little bit of tentativeness to risk. We didn't get much width out of our outside backs on that day. But again, a lot of that's the personnel. But we need to take more risks, get more numbers forward, accelerate the game a little quicker. I feel like a good team has 7 or 8 gears, kind of like a Ferrari. I think we've got, right now, maybe 3, 4, 5 gears. So we need a couple more gears, a little more pop. But that happens too when you play your first couple 90s. You're trying to manage that big chunk of minutes, and it's not easy to have that pop in your play like you have it once you start to really get to peak fitness. But yeah, I felt like for me, we didn't look like the Ferrari yet, where we're changing gears and going into overdrive. So, but that will come. We've got good players, and again, I think when we put it all together, you'll see. Trust the process, and you'll see when we put it all together. Confident tomorrow, you're going to see a very high level of performance. And listen, if we win 1-0 against Vancouver, I think everybody will be happy. 2-0 would be better, and even 3. But ultimately, it's about winning that first game. And I'm confident with our defending, with our chemistry, all these strengths that I've talked about, that we'll find goals to win games.
It was the first look at Artur for extended minutes. I'm just curious what you thought of him, and more importantly, how the recovery has been for him since he's been playing.
I think we've been very surprised, honestly, pleasantly surprised the last couple of weeks. The plan is to get him a 60-minute run tomorrow with the first group. It feels good. He's a great player. Having him in makes a massive difference for us. I love the 2 young boys, Sawatsky and Aiden Morris. Love those 2. They're going to get games this year. But Artie and Darlington, certainly those guys are a different level. And I think Aiden and Sean are the future, right? But Artie's one of the best midfielders in the league. If we can get him healthy and back in, his leadership, his box-to-box range, his ability to win duels, even join the attack, would be a massive lift for our team.
Thank you, Caleb. Next we'll go to Pat Murphy, and then the final question will be Thomas.
Caleb, you just mentioned at the beginning the hunger of your team. And a year ago, we were talking about kind of the pressure of being defending champions, the fact that everyone was going to give you their best shot. That hunger to kind of get back to that, plus not having that maybe monkey on your back. I don't know if that's not the right term. Is that part of the kind of freshness that you feel of this team this year?
Yeah, it's a new year. It's new blood. It's a new team. It just feels like a new hunger, and it's a difficult psychology. After you win, and whatever, let's not rehash that, right? Let's talk about this year, and it's going to be an exciting year, and this is a great group. I love every team I have, honestly. I've had nine teams in MLS, and I'm enjoying this one as much as any I've had, and the staff as well. It's just a new energy, new blood, some young guys, some new staff members. We're going to close it off tonight with a little bit of karaoke, believe it or not, with some of the young guys and the new guys. They have to sing a song. We would never think of doing stuff like that with some of the groups I've had. I think it's just kind of a fun group. And yet they've got a little venom, they're ready to fight as well. And do I think this is going to be a swashbuckling team that scores 4 or 5 goals every game? Maybe not. I think this is a team that's going to grind wins out. And yeah, there'll be some games where we open the floodgates, but I think this is going to be a very mentally tough team, a team that has great chemistry, a team that is difficult to play against. We have to keep in mind, we haven't lost a game in preseason. Now, have we played every game against an opponent that you'd say is the toughest test? No, but I think this is a team that's going to grind points this year. And that's what it's about. You saw that with Nashville with 18 draws. I mean, these are teams that hang around every game and are tough to beat, that refuse to lose. And I think that's kind of this team, and yet I don't want to take away from the attack. I think we've got a good attack. It's just, I feel really good about just kind of the type of team this is shaping up to be.
Do you have a karaoke song you go to?
No chance for me. I'm the worst. But yeah, I can't wait. It's gonna be some interesting. We've got them paired up. There are 12 guys. We have 12 new players, 12, and that are here, and so they're gonna pair up and do 6 songs, and then we have 2 new staff members. They're gonna each do a song. So we'll see where it goes, but I'm looking forward to it.
See if the social media team will send out some video of that.
I might have them do that. That'd be fun.
And our final question will be Thomas Costello.
Thanks, Caleb. I appreciate it. You talk about the midfield, and prior to going to Carolina, and all preseason, it's been flexibility and not just looking at, say, a 2 midfielder set on the defensive end, but maybe looking at moving it up to 3. With Artur and Morris still working on that recovery, you mentioned they're not 100% back yet. They have to build that fitness. Does someone like Zawadzki move himself into that conversation of being in the 3 earlier in the season, or is that going to be more of a crock pot kind of wait and see as the season goes on?
Yeah, I think what's really tricky right now is we have a handful of midfielders that aren't 90 minutes ready. So we've looked at some formations where we have obviously a 3-man midfield with more, a 6 and double 8s. I don't know that we're ready to do that because of where we're at with Aiden coming back from ACL. He's only played a 60. Artie has only played a 45. Igbekeme is only about 30 to 45 minutes fit. So, that's the one area that a little bit we're under the gun on. Everywhere else, we have guys that we can pick that are 90 minutes fit. In there, we just have a handful, even Marlon Hairston, who's only played a 30. So we have 4 guys in that spot that we're going to have to eventually settle on 2 or 3, so that's probably the big question. I do think there are a couple other positions where there's some questions. Number 9, we have 2 good ones, 2 very capable strikers, but I think that one's going to be a week-to-week decision, really, which is a good problem. Central defender, we have 4 very good central defenders. Obviously, Milos got a 90. I thought he had a very good shift. He's actually match fit. He's played 4 90s in the last several weeks with Australia and then with us. But obviously, Josh has a good chemistry with Jonah and knows the league. So you know, I think that's a decision. And on the wing, I think there's some decisions there. We have good options, but we need to settle on two, and then at the number 8. So there's probably 4 positions that are still going to shake out. I think tomorrow's going to tell us a lot.
Thank you, Kale. This will conclude today's